This is part 2 kind of the optical converter and XLR power project. I don't know what I'm calling this, but in this one we're going to talk more about the optical converter. But first I want to make another one of these boxes. I'm going to breeze through that pretty quick in editing and then show how it's all hooked up and how it all works together. This time though I did get a little bit of a bigger box to put everything in because it was a bit of a tight squeeze in this one. I mean, it worked and I liked it again because size of the Blackmagic mini converter, but just a little too cramped for what I want to do. So yeah, let's put this together real quick and then get on with it. I don't want to be too theatrical, but whatever, who cares? Can't curse in the beginning of a YouTube video, otherwise YouTube just demonetizes or age restricts the whole shebang. It's a great world we live in. Weird, this box came with 4 screws in it, but then 3 screws inside. For this one I've got another one of these volt and ammeter combos, and then what I'm going to do is use 2 4-pin XLR connectors, one male, one female, on either side so I could run power through this box if I wanted to. And then have this in the middle, and then barrel plugs maybe on the top as well. That's kind of what I'm thinking here. Well, you know what they say about thinking. Too much of that will make you sick. All right, there we go. First, make sure we don't have a short between the positive and negative. We do not. Should have connectivity there. Yep. For testing, I'm just going to use this thoroughly generic 12 volt, 12 amp power supply. Do we have a display? Yes, 12.1 volts. I just got to see if I can cram this all into the box with the Wago connectors and etc. Yeah, I think the only thing preventing it from really closing are these, so I might have to forgo these and just solder again. There we go. Okay, let's just do one last test with it closed up. Oh yeah, 12 volts, 12.27. This says 12.1, so a little bit off. I don't expect this to be super accurate, as I said in the last video, but accurate enough just to get a general idea that we're not like horribly over or under volting a camera or a device. But anyway, yeah, 12 volts. And then we should see 12 volts, if my probes will fit in these holes, on the output here. Yep. So yeah, definitely a better idea to go with the larger box. Just by comparison, this was the other one. So bigger, but allowed me to use Wago connectors, so it's modular inside in case I want to add barrel jacks or something. Easy enough to do. And yeah, just a little neater, I think. And allowed me to put the pass-through XLR on it also, which I kind of like. Yeah, now let's get to hooking all this stuff up. Well, first I got to make a couple of XLR cables, like long ones, to get from the power supply, wherever I want to put it, to the camera. Okay, so now that that box is done, and I got 2 of these for 2 cameras, let's talk about the optical fiber converter, or converters in this case. Got a bunch of stuff on the bench here, well, table, and what I'm going to do is put together a little demo of this setup that's ultimately going to be rigged into my whole studio system down here, and it's going to combine 2 optical fiber converters, although on the other end of this, in the actual studio configuration, there's going to be a Blackmagic studio media converter, this thing. I did a video about it. I think I mentioned that in the last video on this subject. Why is this like jammed in there? Alright, well the first slightly odd thing is that this protective cover seems to have been jammed into this slot. Yeah, beyond where it should be. I think it bent it a little bit. That's fine though. Shouldn't affect the operation of the device. And I opened one of these up in the previous video on this subject, so I'm not really going to get into it too much, but a quick unboxing just to refamiliarize everyone. And I'm going to wager, I think, see, this one's not jammed in. I think the reason it was jammed in is because this just sits kind of loose in the box, and if the box goes through shipping and it gets pounded on that end, that would get messed up. So I'm pretty sure that's what happened, because it should come out nice and easy like that. So that's in the box, obviously, as is a power supply and some various international adapters, which you get with pretty much every single Blackmagic product. In fact, I've got so many of these over the years. I saved a couple of the international adapters just in case I ever need them, but for the most part, what I do is I click that on there and then throw these in the garbage. Kind of wasteful, but what am I supposed to do with them otherwise? And oh, I did mention in the last video, so these have a locking DC barrel jack, as do these DC barrel plugs I got from Amazon, but these are just a little bit longer, and whoops, and the ring just does not go down far enough in order to actually capture. So what I did was I cut the end off of a couple of Blackmagic power supplies and left the Blackmagic end on here and one of the ones I bought, so this can go into the box, and then this can go into the converter, and both ends will screw on nicely. And those power supplies didn't go to waste, by the way. All I did was put my own barrel plugs on each of them. So they're still perfectly serviceable. It's just they won't really work as a locking power jack with one of these, but that's fine. As mentioned, this on its own is pretty useless. I just realized there's no firmware upgrade port. Almost all Blackmagic mini converters have a USB port, at least for firmware upgrades, if not also for power on the newer ones. But anyway, what you'll need with one of these in order to use it with, well, optical fiber is a transceiver, or an SFP. And that just slots right in, and now you can connect to your optical fiber to it. As so. And of course, since we have 2 of these, we'll need 2 of these transceivers. Now, one thing I should mention is that I've had these transceivers for a while. These are both 6G transceivers, whereas these are 12G devices. One thing I want to test in this video is, will it work with a 6G transceiver, or do I need a 12G one? I'm only going to be sending a 6G signal over this connection, so it should be fine for me, because I'm shooting at 2160, 24 frames per second, or 4K as the kids call it. So for higher resolutions or higher frame rates above 30 FPS at 4K, you would need 12G, but for 24 FPS at 4K, yeah, this should be fine. But the question is, will these newer devices be compatible with the older SFPs? That's the question I want to answer right now, amongst other things. So let's connect all this stuff and see what we got. Previously, I did a video about these Blackmagic Micro Studio cameras. This is the G2 version. And of course, one thing you'll need is a monitor hooked up to the HDMI port to configure the camera, but also sort of to check and make sure the camera is actually putting out video. And I'm going to be connecting this right now to both the SDI in and outs, but technically right now all I need is the SDI out, which is the yellow cable. Ultimately, I am going to be using this with an ATM switcher, so the SDI in will allow it to send commands to the camera. But for the purposes of this example, I'm just going to be sending the SDI signal through to this Blackmagic Video Assist. It's the 6G version of that as well. And I'm going to power this particular optical converter. I don't know why I tried spinning that on. This is one of my connectors. I'm going to be powering this guy from mains AC. But on the camera head end, that's what I got these boxes for. Well, that's what I built these boxes for. We'll use the newer one just for testing purposes. And that core power supply I sent back to B&H because it just did not appear to work. And I'm going to get a replacement, and we'll see if that one works. So right now, all I have is this 12-volt power adapter brick, which says it's good for 10 amps. It should be more than enough for our purposes. Plug that into the box. You can see if I had it right side up, we got 12.4 volts, and nothing's drawing any amps right now. Oh, actually, if we're going to do a full simulation of what this is going to be like, I also made up this 4-pin XLR cable. It's about 10 meters long, 30-ish feet, and that's actually going to be what's feeding this box. So just by example, let's just send it through that just for fun. And that brings us to the camera side of things, where I'm going to hook up 3 of my barrel plug to barrel plug cables, which will all be powered from that one power supply. And just got to arrange this all in kind of a sensible fashion. So one of these is going to power the optical fiber converter. One of these is going to power the camera. And, oh, well, we already have video coming out of it. Although it's saying it's drawing 0 amps, which is obviously not correct if the camera's powered up. So I think this ammeter might be faulty, which is unfortunate, but not mission critical, because that was really just for my own curiosity. But you know what? To satisfy curiosity, let's just take a stab and make sure that this ammeter works in this smaller box. And of course the configuration of the jacks is a little bit different. But now, now we got 12.1 volts at 0.84 amps, which still seems very low, but I guess it's realistic. And then we can also power, if I knew where the input is, this Feel World monitor off of this as well. And now it's drawing 1.05 amps at 1.34. And there we go. We have the output from this camera. That's about as close as it'll focus. But anyway, you can see, obviously we do have a signal from one fiber converter to the other, and then onto this monitor. So that's great. So the 6G SFPs will work with these fiber converters. Now, one other thing, let me at least get something in there that you can see. One other thing I wanted to check out, I've got these 2 10G Ethernet SFPs from Dell and Intel, and I want to see if those will work in these 2 devices. And SFPs should be hot swappable, so I'm just going to pull them out, because I'm a maverick like that. And let's see if we get any video. Yes. So just to confirm, because I think I did check this out last time I dealt with fiber optics down here, is that you can replace, or in place of the Blackmagic transceivers, just use 10 gigabit Ethernet adapter transceivers. And the reason that's an advantage is because these are probably harder to find on eBay on the used market, assuming you want to do this on the cheap like I do. Well, cheap being a relative term, but you know what I mean, doing this in a fairly half-assed manner. So it's definitely going to be easy and cheap to get Ethernet SFPs rather than Blackmagic branded 6G SDI SFPs. Now, one thing I will wager is that we cannot combine them, though. Like, these are both Ethernet SFPs in here right now. If I pull one of these out and replace it with this, I'm wagering it's not going to work, because the Blackmagic SFPs are at 1310 nanometers in wavelength, and the Ethernet SFPs are 850 nanometers. So they should be completely outside of each other's wavelength. And yeah, that does not work at all. So if you are going to go with Ethernet SFPs, you need to have the same specification of SFP on either end. So you can't mix and match Blackmagic SFPs and Ethernet SFPs. I mean, you can on different inputs. Like, for example, for one camera with a pair of transceivers, I could use Ethernet, another pair of transceivers I could use Blackmagic, but I just couldn't use Blackmagic and Ethernet connected by the same optical fiber. That just won't work. And as I said in part 1 of this video, my plan is more or less to sort of mount these like this, approximately, and then have the camera just very close to that, mounted on an armature. I might mount these separately. I haven't decided yet, because I haven't tried to rig it up yet, but let's go ahead and do that now that we've confirmed that all this stuff is working properly and working together. All right, well, you have to excuse the lighting conditions here, but this is the impact articulated arm that I showed in the previous video. It articulates, as we can see. And this is the Blackmagic Micro Studio camera in question, so got to figure out a way to rig this up. It doesn't have to look pretty because it'll be behind the camera, but it just has to be functional. So that's what we'll do. And as a side note, the camera is hanging from a Manfrotto clamp that's clamped onto this pipework that just is screwed into the ceiling. And with the, well, shall we say, house lights on down here in the basement, you could get a better idea of what I'm talking about. There's a flange running down to, I think that's some 1/2-inch black pipe, which then goes down to 1-inch black pipe off of a T. The T is just so that I can extend this if I wanted to. And it kind of just goes across. We got lights hanging from it. We got DMX hanging from it. And, of course, wiring. So first things first, I'm going to pull power just right over here and then down by this pipe where these other wires are. This is all just temporarily hung there because I haven't really figured out a way to route it down. I mean, it's just going to be against this pole, which is a support pole of my basement. So, well, for my house, that keeps it from falling on my head while I'm in the basement. And this cable is not an XLR audio cable. I actually bought 16 gauge. It's actually intended as control cable. There's two 16 gauge conductors and it is shielded and fairly thick and heavy. So I figured, like, it's got a thick jacket on it, it should be fairly durable. I figured that was a better option than using light gauge audio cable. And also I found that when trying to buy pre-made cables, they almost never tell you what gauge the wire is inside of the cable. And obviously I want something that could handle at least a few amps. So just decided to go with making my own. And then just to get the length here, I'm going to drop this arm, well, out of view of the camera, because unfortunately I can't tilt down right now. And I'll leave a little bit of extra slack. I can always pull it back. And next I'll bring the fiber optic cable down to the same length as the XLR cable. Again, I got plenty of slack, so I can pull it back if this is too long, but better too long than too short. And so these two cables are really all we need right here. But I do have to figure out a way to mount these two things to this arm without them interfering with the operation of the arm. I'm thinking just zip tie underneath the camera. Not quite ideal, but it'll work. It would be nice if Blackmagic put like 1/4-inch threads or something on these devices. Not that I have anywhere to mount those threads, but just in general for rigging stuff. And then we got the SDI in and out on that side, and they're on this side of the camera, so we would want this whole thing pointing that way. I really like this. I find this industrial strength Velcro works really well. The adhesive is really strong on it, in addition to the hooking and looping well. And just for the fun of it, I got black and white, so I'll put the white Velcro on this box and the black Velcro on this box. Completely unnecessary anal retentive way of doing this, but you know. All right, and those do make quite a nice package. No innuendo intended. And so the XLR connector's on the bottom here, so this is going to be mounted that way. All right, admittedly, a bit, I don't know, awkward looking, but should stay there. I mean, yeah, it's not going anywhere. I may reconfigure it at some point. I mean, yeah, okay. It all does fit together kind of nicely. It's a nice little compact package. Like I said, maybe not ideal, but yeah, this should work. And, you know, can move it all around, drop it down, pick it up, do the hokey pokey, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, so let me switch over to this camera and we'll see what's up. Oh, yeah, help if I plug in power to it. Okay, and do we have power? Yes, 12.1 volts at 0.68 amps right now. Should be running both the optical converter and as I was saying, should be running the optical converter and the camera. I did forget something kind of mission critical, the actual connection from the camera to the optical converter, because this ain't going to do a thing without that. Okay, now it is rigged and should work. Cabling is a little messy. That'll be cleaned up. I'll zip tie everything together. But for now, just make sure this works. Oh, that still has the Ethernet SFP in it, though, doesn't it? So it's not going to work. Wait, what the hell SFP is in there? Wait a minute. Well, you're now seeing the camera that's mounted on the articulated arm. Can sort of articulate this around. There's my desk, table, whatever. But here's the weird thing. All right, well, this is way overexposed. Oh, I didn't set the ID on that camera. Oh, that was my fault. I had to connect the monitor to the HDMI port, so I can set the ATEM camera ID, and hopefully I can't control it. Maybe that's down to the SFP incompatibility. Okay, here's the thing real quick. Right now, this should not be working because I accidentally left a Ethernet SFP in the mini converter, but I have a Blackmagic SFP in the ATEM studio converter. So those two should not work together because they're using completely different wavelengths that are quite a few hundred nanometers apart. Weird. And it didn't work before when I tried it. So not sure what kind of magic is going on now, but what I think might be happening is it's not receiving commands from the switcher because it's probably got a janky optical connection. So let me swap out that SFP with a Blackmagic one, so we should have good communication. It's unexpected, but hey, there you go. I wouldn't recommend you trying to use this because it's probably going to be flaky. I don't know. There we go. Yeah, now it's receiving signals from the switcher. Yeah, I think that was not supposed to work. My focus isn't too bad, actually. Okay, so yeah, there we go. That is rigged and clearly working. It was definitely the Intel SFP that was in the camera's converter, and definitely a Blackmagic SFP in the ATEM studio converter. So I don't know how that worked, but like I said, it was only working in one direction, so it was a very sketchy connection. In fact, so it was working in the direction of the transmitter being the Intel SFP at 850 nanometers, going into the Blackmagic SFP, which is expecting 1310 nanometers, but I guess it probably doesn't have a filter on it, so it's probably able to pick up most infrared wavelengths, but not the other way around. Oh, I didn't even notice that. At some point, I had labeled this Intel, or allegedly Intel SFP, a possible fake. Probably because I got it off eBay real cheap. You do have to watch out for that. But it did work, and it did work in this circumstance where it shouldn't have worked. So maybe this is putting out the wrong wavelength. Don't know. And I don't have a way of measuring the wavelengths of infrared light, especially low power infrared laser light. So that'll remain a mystery. I don't know. But clearly I had some kind of issue with this in order to label it fake. If you are going to buy SFPs on eBay, buy them from a reputable seller. And if you're going to buy Ethernet SFPs, buy them from a seller that sells like servers and high-end networking gear, a seller that it would make sense that they're selling lots of these. If you find a good deal on some SFPs and the seller is also selling a whole bunch of other junk, like old home furnishings and board games and stuff like that they dug out of an attic or whatever, or this is the only thing they're selling but they have huge quantities of them for some reason. For Blackmagic SFPs, the same sort of idea, but those will be sold by someone who specializes in video. So buy it from a seller that sells high-end cameras and other sorts of AV gear in quantity, and that has a good feedback rating and a lot of feedback. And if they're selling SFPs, they're probably legit. That's my 2 cents, because I have been burned, obviously, before. Or at least I think I've been burned, because it says possible fake, not definitive fake, and it does work, so don't know. And yeah, I mean, I already went over this in my Blackmagic Micro Studio Camera G2 video, but it's not matching well with the Ursa Mini right off the bat. But, as with my other Blackmagic Micro Studio cameras, in particular these two guys, I am going to run it through an HDMI to SDI converter so I can apply a lookup table to them. That'll be done closer to the switcher, and obviously I'm not going to add another box next to the camera because that would be silly in this case. So, no, I'm looking at this camera. So yeah, that's it for this video. That's the optical mini converters from Blackmagic Design. I don't know if it needs to be said. This video is not sponsored. I'm just kind of messing around down here. I bought these with my own money. Blackmagic doesn't care who I am. In fact, if anything, they don't like me because I've made some pissy posts on their forums over the years. Their stuff's good. It's just not great in a lot of ways. But obviously I own a lot of Blackmagic equipment. I'm not pooping on them. I'm just saying that, you know, it's not super high-end, but it's relatively affordable. Anyway, that's it for this video. The next thing I'm going to do is add another arm coming down approximately here, just off camera. And that will replace my like over-the-shoulder camera that's over here, which is obviously a much bulkier studio camera, full-size studio camera, Gen 1. And so this way I'll have an articulated mount over here also that I can position however I need to for whatever I'm shooting. It'll be the same setup, only using this larger box that I just made, with apparently the busted ammeter, which kind of is disappointing, but I'm not going to bother fixing that because I don't really care. But otherwise, this box, version 2.0, came out a lot better than version 1.0. Everything's just like a little bit more symmetrical, has a little more room to breathe. I do like the fact that I put a pass-through XLR connector on it. And obviously these boxes are all passive boxes. The only active component is this volt ammeter, which could be omitted, and it would still have the same basic functionality. It's just a splitter. That's all it is. But yeah, version 2.0 came out a lot nicer. And definitely better idea going with a bigger box, even though I did like that the other one sort of matched the size of the mini converter. But this one is close enough. I could still Velcro a mini converter to the back of it, and it would actually sort of help to protect these I/O ports. Oh, I guess as part of the conclusion, I should mention, and I did mention it in the previous video for sure, I don't need fiber optics down here. I could run just RG6 cable up through my little gantry system that I made. It would probably be fine. Fiber optic in theory is better because I do have a lot of line voltage cables running parallel to where I'd be running those SDI cables, which could cause interference, but then again, it'd be a very short run, not too concerning. But the bottom line is, I just like the idea of fiber optic cables. They're just cooler. That's a me thing. You don't have to use them. It goes back to like childhood when fiber optics were something that only, you know, universities and telecoms and major corporations used in their IT systems, and they were something unattainable to a mere mortal like me. And now I just have fiber optics running from my cameras. I have fiber optics running from my Ethernet switch back there, just for my own amusement, just because it's cool. Although, to be fair, the Ethernet, back when I bought that switch and upgraded to 10 gigabit Ethernet, fiber was really the cheaper way to go rather than copper. So, whatever. All that's to say, I hope this helped you if you're looking into these devices or you're curious about what SFPs are compatible with them. Turns out more than you'd think, but I'm not a professional user and I don't really need fiber optics. I just like them. I just like fiber. Oh, and obviously fiber optics would also be key if you had very long runs, but I do not have a very long run down here of any sort. I think my longest cable distance from a camera to the switcher is maybe 10 meters, and that's only because it runs, you know, this way and that way before it hits the camera. The camera that you're looking through right now is the one farthest away from me, and it's about maybe 3 meters from me, maybe 10 feet. So, yeah, all this is unnecessary, but just kind of cool. So, thanks for watching. I've been Scott. What's the same? Finger guns. I swear to God, I don't do these awkward outros on purpose. And I don't even do them all the time. It's just, I don't know why I did that. I really don't. Like, I ended another video by going like this, or something like that. I ended another video by saluting all you good viewers, bumping into shit. I don't know, man. I don't know what I'm doing down here. This is all just what it is. It's just a fucking tautology. I don't know why I'm... Okay, end the video.